let's view the incarnation through the pathway of education. We all know education. In order to graduate into the first grade, we must master kindergarten. To get into second grade, we must master first grade. To get into third grade, we must master second grade. Incarnations is very much like this. All of us are wanting to reach totality. What is totality? Totality is dynamic, is a range. You could see it as a spectrum. And basically, that dynamic range or spectrum can be seen as the zodiac wheel. In the Vedic tradition, we have a zodiac wheel that is a clock. And that clock maps the planetary cycle for Earth. And that planetary cycle consists of 26 plus or minus 1,000 years. I'll talk about this a lot. And within each of those sections of time, which can be 3,000, 5,000 years, we have a lesson, an instruction, an assignment, a test, and a mastery. For example, Aries. Aries has its own lesson, assignment, tests, mastery. And that can be 3,000 to 5,000 years, and we move on to the next zodiac, which is Taurus. So this goes through the Vedic wheel, which is, like I said, 26 plus or minus 1,000 years. Our soul is like this. The totality of our being is not we are Aries, we are Taurus. We are the knowledge, the lesson, the mastery of all of the zodiacs. That is how dynamic we are. Now, it's hard for us to view ourselves from a totality point of view because we are very much driven by that linear mind, which is the patriarchal mind, the masculine mind. So we have a huge emphasis on the patriarchal linear perspective. So when we look at education, we see it as front and back. You're moving forward, you're progressing, you're moving back, you're reviewing. So forward, progressing, back is reviewing. That's how we look at school. If you're going into the second grade from first grade, you are progressing. When you are looking back to first grade and second grade, you're reviewing what you've learned in the first grade to help you best navigate and propel yourself forward into second grade, moving into third grade. But in the matriarch part of ourselves, we could say that expansion of awareness. We have linear time that is very much you're moving forward, they're back, side to side. The matriarch part of ourself represents the wheel. Not just a wheel as we see it as a two-dimensional, a circle on a piece of paper. It's very much like spherical. It's spherical and like third dimensional and moving into like fifth dimensional. Or it is folding, very much like yoga. We're folding like our paper folding. That is very much, we could say, two-dimensional, becoming third-dimensional and possibly fifth-dimensional. So a piece of paper, folding it into a multitude of forms, multitude of shapes, becomes like a third-dimensional into a fifth-dimensional. So that's very much the art of the feminine aspect of ourselves. So when we look at our incarnations, we are given We are given a lesson, we're given an instruction, an assignment, a test, and a mastery. And it is so dynamic because expression is so dynamic. But with incarnation, we are neither progressing or reviewing, what we call going side to side, which is transurfing. When we think of surfing, we think of it's like we're gliding to the side. We're not moving forward, we're not moving back, we're gliding to the side. And what is that side to side represents? Possibility. So when we're transurfing like a surfer, kind of gliding to the side, we are looking at our possibilities. We're looking at our possibilities for our future because that's ahead of us. We're looking at the past and reviewing how the past has served us and how the different choices we could have made in the past or the choices we could make in the future. That's what transurfing side to side is. We're looking at ourselves today, in this present moment, and the decisions, all of the decisions we could make in this moment now. And those decisions, based on the past, become reviewing all of the decisions we made in the past and the decisions we could have made better choices, or we made choices that could have been worse, and also in the future looking towards the decisions, possibilities of better decisions or maybe not so good decisions. It could also be expression as well, the way we expressed ourselves in the past, the way we could possibly express ourselves in the future. And the transurfing, we could say going side to side. We say this side to side energy, like surfing, gliding side to side, is very much looking at our expression and how much of a range our expression is today. So when we see ourselves in this moment, we are not bound to what we call linear expression. So linear expression is very much, you are this person, you were made to be this person in the past, and you're going to become this person. So it's very much, we have lost the side-to-side motion, and we are just strictly linear, going from the back into the front. So as a child, we were molded to be this person. Now we are this person, and we're going to be that person. So when we think of it linear like that, it's very much confining. It's like a box. Okay, there's no room to expand. There's no room to review your possibilities in your past and the choices you could have made, and review or progress in your future and think of all the possibilities you could make. So that's just a little snippet of your fifth dimensional, we could say third dimensional, moving into fifth dimensional self. So we are very much like two-dimensional right now. We see, if we view ourselves from a wheel, like Aries to Pisces, or like a clock, we see it as a circle on a piece of paper, which is like two-dimensional, really. But when we begin to look at it as like folding a piece of paper into all kinds of shape, like we know that's possible to fold paper into infinite amount of shapes. Either it's like a dragon, a horse, that is possible. A horse, a flower, a unicorn. Basically, that's getting third dimensional, getting fifth dimensional. Well, two-dimensional, linear, which is a circle, all you see is just a line on a piece of paper. Now, it has expression, it has range, it has a dynamic range. That is very much our incarnations. But when looking at our incarnations from the pathway of school, we can see our progress as very much spiritually. Okay, it's not even just solely spiritual. We have chakras, and each of them have their own school of thought, such as the root chakra represents school of thought when it comes to our primitive self, which is creating a life for yourself. Could be money, could be sex, and then moving up the chakras. The second chakra, we get into creativity, the way you command yourself, you will yourself. We can move on to the third chakra, that solar plexus is our vitality, our health. Move into the heart, which is our emotional body, a sense of compassion or judgment. Do we have compassion or judgment? It reveals how expansive our heart is or how compressed our heart is. Moving into the throat chakra, the school of thought is very much about how do we express the chakras below the throat chakra. How do we express our money, making of money, sexuality, you could say, a creativity and a will to endure or to tolerate or to be patient, and our vitality, that radiance, that good health. How do we express that? That's that throat chakra. Moving into, we could say, that third eye, it is our ability to access higher wisdom or higher understanding, a higher perspective. Moving into the crown chakra, it is the receptivity of imagination. Imagination that basically replenishes all of our chakras, giving our chakras a fresh school of thought. It's like renewals our chakras so that we're never static. Okay, so all of these chakras have their own school of thought, or we could say school of mastery. But when we have a particular incarnation, we're not looking at we have this thing that we want to balance, this thing we want to attain, this thing we want to make happen or manifest for ourselves. It's very much in each incarnation, we are given the possibility to be so dynamic and so expansive, not just in one area, but the many areas of our being. Like I said, we could look at the chakras, but we have even more than that. But that, I'm not going to get into that, okay? We're just looking at the 7 chakras just to kind of handle. It's like, let's not go too far, too out there and all how infinite we are, but very much. So we are learning how to progress, but we're also learning how to review. We're learning how to surf to see our possibilities, so we're never confined into, I'm this person, I'll always be this person. If I don't like this person, then I'm kind of, there's no chance for me to be anybody else. That kind of thing. But the main important thing to remember, like the pathway of education, we all are given an assignment. Okay, we all have a lesson, we all have an instruction, an assignment, a test, and a mastery. But when we look at it from the planet's perspectives, we have, like I've mentioned, we have the lesson, the instruction, the assignment, the test, the mastery that are all contained in the houses of the planet. That's when we're looking at our birth chart. Each of the houses, we have something that we are wanting to learn and master within each of those planetary houses, within each of the zodiac. So we're not only, when we think of school, first grade and second grade, that's all you have to worry about is first grade. All you have to worry about is second grade. No, for us, we are learning and mastering each of the planet, and the planet, we see them as the houses, and the zodiac, we say Aries to Pisces. We have our lesson and mastery within each of those as well. So when we're looking at our birth chart and we're looking at the houses of the planets and we're looking at also the zodiac, we could say from Aries to Pisces, that is showing us what is the concentration for ourselves in this life. For example, Pluto. The zodiac that Pluto is in, okay, represents the concentration for the lesson and mastery. For example, my Pluto is in Scorpio. So with my pathway of education, there's a great emphasis on letting go of the old, transformation, and experiencing what we call quantum leap and spiritual growth. That is a concentration for me. Now, if it was Pluto, and let's say, you could say Aries, that's going to be a totally different concentration. It's just like we could say college, really. Or when we get into upper grade level, like high school or middle school. each of us, we begin to discover our authentic rhythm. And then we begin to focus on concentration for us. Like in middle school, we navigate towards, let's say, English more so than science. That is like we're discovering our concentration. That's the same way for us. We have this natural, authentic rhythm that may lean more towards Aries or more towards, we could say, Gemini, or we could have the concentration that's leaning more towards Capricorn. Our authentic rhythm, that is basically revealing and guiding us towards a particular concentration in this lifetime. That we are wanting the lesson and we're wanting the mastery. Because when we look at ourselves in the spirit sense, before we are born into a physical body, we're just total spirit, okay? Basically, we want to be so liberated in our physical body where we can basically transurf or transverse, which is like moving back or forward. That's like transversing, moving, progressing, or reviewing. Transurfing is going side to side, looking at possibilities. We want to, in this physical body, be so well-rounded that in our mastery of the houses, the planets, as well as the zodiac, and all of the paper origami, we could say, all of the infinite shapes an origami can make, such as the origami can make a configuration that is Aries, Gemini, or we could say Pluto, Capricorn. That's origami. There's so many infinite ways the planets and the zodiac could make a shape. Infinite ways. And as a soul coming into the body, we want to train our body to be able to take on that origami, third dimensional, fifth dimensional shape where we could literally move ourselves into a multitude of shapes. That's why we could say 8.4 million lifetimes. Billion lifetimes. On just this planet. We may wonder, why would we have like so many lifetimes? Like what is the game of it? That's the game. Each lifetime we're learning basically how to take an origami shape. An origami shape, if we learn origami, if you really learn it, it's very complicated. Complex, we'll just say complex. You fold it and then you have to fold it this way, then you have to fold it that way, to the left, to the right, upper, downward. It's very complex, but once you get that shape, you know how to make that shape again. For example, you make a dragon, you fold it all these ways, you get that dragon. Finally, when you review, you have that knowledge within your fingertips on how to just naturally create that dragon. So each of us are given a life because we are wanting to create out of this paper, like this two-dimensional plane, that we have, and create something third-dimensional, fifth-dimensional out of it. And then once we kind of we learn it, firstly, how to do that, we master it, such as mastering how to make the dragon, we could say out of origami paper. Then in the next incarnation, we're giving a different shape. We're giving a different form that our lesson for mastery. A dragon, now we're learning how to make a flower, and then a flower learning how to make a truck, and a truck learning how to make an origami dolphin, or a horse, or a mountain, or a house. You see where I'm going? So infinite. So infinite. So when you look at somebody who's really studied origami and had all these concentration, one lesson was on a horse, the next lesson concentration on the dragon, and then the next the dolphin. When you ask an origami, let's say, to change shapes quickly, to be as many shapes, change as many times as you can, the origami master of all of just can change shapes quite easily because they are so well-rounded in their understanding of these different forms. That's when we get into the word compassion. Compassion. It means there's a relationship with all things. So therefore, judgment is when we are bound to one thing. So all we know is this one shape, this one form, such as all I know how to do is make a flower. The compassion comes from our ability, you could say, is becoming many shapes, even shapes that just seem like they don't even can connect or relate to each other. Like certain species, let's say like a squid. How does a squid relate to a horse? I don't know. It just seems a squid we know has a relationship with a fish because the squid eats the fish. They interact with each other. They're in the same sea. But a horse and an octopus, there really is no connection. But the connection is, we could say, source energy is that origami maker that through the experience of transforming two-dimensional flat paper into an octopus, mastering that, how to make that shape, and then a horse, the hand of the person that created the origami horse and octopus is the compassion. That is the bridge, because it's the same hands that touch the octopus and that touch the horse. And that's when we get into that expression of God. And we all have that within us. And God, in any religion, we see it as immense compassion, non-judgment. And through that immense compassion, we are able to basically surf side to side and transverse, forward, progress, review in many, many ways, in many forms, and many shapes. And that gives us this godly feeling, like no matter what person we are today, we know how to basically, if we are this person, this origami person, we know how to unravel that person, get that person to like a two-dimensional flat paper and recreate ourselves. So if we are this person, the mastery of basically having many, many incarnations, being so many different forms and having different lives as a man or a woman or even different species on this planet, we're this person, we know how to change this person, unravel that paper of us, so you say origami paper of us, into a two-dimensional paper, which is flat. It's basic, it's simple, it's almost like we could say it's nothing. It hasn't taken shape, it hasn't taken form yet. It's just like this blankness. We can move that blankness through our expression, our ability to transform expression. We can basically, with our hands, create it into something else. And that's what we call adaptability. That's what we call agility. So when we could say like a young soul, we could say young souls, we do have this sense of judgment when we get into this physical body, because we haven't had enough experience taking different forms to actually change ourselves in a way to better fit our life. And then we feel quite uncomfortable in life, and then we feel bound to life, and then we don't know how to make life work for us because we don't know how to fit ourselves into life, because we don't have that skill, almost like that origami skill. As an older soul, it becomes more easy to fit ourselves into the reality we want for ourselves, to fit ourselves into life and to make life work for us. Because if we need to, we can change ourselves quite quickly. We can switch perspective quite quickly. We can jump from this perspective all the way to that perspective quite quickly, because we know both perspectives, because we've been both of them, from the range of judgment all the way to immense compassion. Every step of the way, we've been there and done that. We've played all of these narratives. That's why we have immense compassion for all of the narratives that are playing out in life. Either it's like a criminal, either it's a saint, either it's a kid that was molested, a kid that had prestige, a kid that was poor, a kid that was rich. We could say a man that is working in a bank, a man that's an artist, a man that's a dancer, a man that's a builder. It's like we've been there and done that. We know all those shapes. And that's what gives us in this life we can call resource. So a wise soul, what we see them as, is resourceful. They can take the perspective of the builder, and they've been there, they've done that in previous life. And if they need a skill from the builder's mind, they can access that because they've been there and done that. So think about it. I mean, what would we, if we had millions, billions of lives on this planet Earth, what would we do? We would try to be everything so that we can master everything, so that we can know how to take the shape, the origami shape, and how to unfold the shape and get back to original blank piece of paper, such as the shape of poverty. That has its origami shape. Through experiencing that, been there, done that, we can know the shape. We know how to make the shape. We know how to fold the paper, and then this way and that way and that way. We know how to also unravel the shape. So it's important to not just know how to make the shape, but also how to unravel the shape into its flat piece of paper again. So then flat, two-dimensional, what we call nothingness, blankness, can become a new shape. So this is very much expansive when we look at incarnations. So whatever, we all have a narrative that we're playing in this life, but we also have many narratives that we played before that we can access, like that feeling of, yeah, I kind of been there and done that, like that narrative. Okay, what is the lesson? What is the mastery? What is it trying to show me? How can I improve that? So it's like we're given, like even first grade, what we say to sixth grade with that elementary school level. Basically, we have that elementary school level because we're looking, how can I improve what I review in the first grade, in the second grade, and then in the sixth grade, how can I review all of what I've learned and improve all of it that I've learned moving into middle school? So that's why we're given this chance in this physical body, in the challenges, in the struggle, because we're experiencing it. Maybe it's foreign to us. We're really uncomfortable with it. Like any person in school, very uncomfortable with going into the third grade, or maybe you're in the fifth grade and you're learning a new language, and you're totally uncomfortable with it. But it's introduced into your system because, let's say, if you are in an environment where you need to know Spanish, or it'd be helpful to know Spanish, you can access it because you've basically worked on it within yourself. And then if you choose, if you want to go down that pathway, you can master the language. But that's not going to be for everyone. So that's why we're given even repeating lessons, because it's a chance for us to improve what it is we've learned. Because a lot of times, in order for us to move forward, we call progress, there's something, let's say, in our past that we didn't really successfully navigate through, but is absolutely fundamental and maybe a foundation for what we need to learn in the future. So it's presented to us again and again because the universe, or we could say even our teacher, knows that we need to master this. It's like a fundamental class. We all know there's fundamental classes that we take to get to like level 1 or something. Like fundamental of algebra to get to algebra 1. That's kind of what the repeats are. But the resistance can be from our inability to, we call inability to change or to adapt, because we've been so molded into a linear, we're progressing, we're reviewing, that's pretty much it. Okay? That masculine part of ourselves, that's the resistance. But when we connect to that soul version of ourselves, we realize that we've been there, we've done that, we've been many things. So we can be many things in this life. And that is what gives us this feeling of liberation, what we call liberating the body, liberating the mind. It's through what we call a soul remembrance, that we've been many things, we've done many things, we've experienced many narratives, we've had many lessons, instructions, assignments, tasks, and masteries. And movement is health, and vitality is health. So when we think of health, vitality, it's joy. It's joy that comes from remembering the soul, and that the soul, it has it down. It has it down. It knows how to change forms. It knows how to access narratives or past lives or even future possibilities. It knows how to give you the incarnation you need for your evolution. You just need to embark upon growth. So that's when we get into the judgment. The judgment creates what we call a dud life, meaning there was not much growth that happened. A dud is like, you just sat around and you didn't really do much with your life. You didn't embark upon, you became very static. We all know these people that are very static. They live their life, they have their routine, their job, their partner, their kid, but they're static. Meaning they're not growing within their creativity. They're not growing within you could say, their wealth or their sexual energy. They're not growing within their emotional maturity or emotional bliss. They're not growing within the expression of themselves and getting more into like an authentic expression. They're not growing in their access of wisdom or accessing of healing modalities. They're not growing in their imagination and ability to visualize a life for themselves. That's a static person. And the static person a lot of times is from the judgment. And the judgment, we all have it very heavy in our system, where we see ourselves as this person, but we don't see anything else. We don't see the range. We don't see the spectrum. We are not transurfing possible realities for ourselves. We're not transversing and seeing the future horizon and how vast it is, and we're not seeing the past and how we could have made so many choices, but we chose the choice we made because that's where we were at that time. We don't see any of that through the eyes of judgment. We don't see how a horse and an octopus are connected. We don't understand. We're like, what? The octopus and a horse, there's no correlation. There's no connection at all. And that's where we begin to what we call limit, and then limit, and then limit, and then limit, and then limit ourselves. And then spend our whole life just as this one origami shape. That's what we call a dead life. You've only been this origami shape your whole entire life. I mean, that's a life. You could, learn that origami shape in one life. But the point of having many lives is that in a single life, you can be as many origami shapes you want to. That's what we're trying to get to. In a single life, we can be as many origami shapes as possible. It's not going to be easy. But growth, we are so comfortable with growth and the challenge in the expansion of growth. That we go through it because we know that through the many expressions and the shapes we take, we become vitality, movement. Movement is inspiration. Movement is evolution. Movement is joy. To be the horse, and then the origami shape of the horse, and then the fish, and then the grass, and then the tree. That's vitality, and that's joy. That's what we call the eyes of God, seeing ourselves as many things and being in awe at ourselves and how we are really many things. That brings us into that oneness consciousness. When we're just one thing our whole life, that's judgment. Because we didn't allow ourselves to be many things, to experience many things because of the judgment, which is bound to just keeping oneself as just oneself. This person. I'm this person. So then, we don't ever know in a single life the potential of ourselves. The potential of ourselves. And that's why we come here, to know the potential of ourselves. That's the liberation of ourselves, to know the potential of ourselves. To break through the blocks that we call blocks. As you get stumped on a math problem, you're blocked. And judgment, you a lot of times block is judgment. You judge yourself. You've reached some sort of glass ceiling in your ability to understand math. And now you're at a new level, but the glass ceiling is still lower than the level that you've just reached. So what do you have to do? You have to break through the glass ceiling. And how we do that is through growth. It's through transurfing possibilities and transversing the progress, and transversing, we say backward, which is reviewing. And all of that's going on in that dynamic of ourselves. And that's what breaks the glass ceiling, where all of a sudden, bam, it comes to us. I know how to solve this math problem. I know how. That's growth. That's stretching. That's that glass ceiling breaking and you stretching. And we talk about yoga, we talk about flexibility as bliss, as nirvana, as a true joy. And we all know it. The ability to move yourself through life, navigate yourself through life, is the greatest tool you can give yourself. So no matter what kind of shape you're molded into in your physical life, such as you were born into poverty, you're bound to poverty, you die poverty, rich, you're born rich, you die rich. The compassion is the ability to literally move yourself through this life experience. So if you're poverty, you know how to bring wealth to yourself because you know both of the spectrum. You're the bridge. And that's what we are always creating, bridges from how to make an origami shape of a horse and all of a sudden now to a duck. The bridge is our flexibility. It is the movement. Like when you see a true origami person, they're making a horse and then the same couple little unfold and then all of a sudden it's a duck. And you're like, how did you get from that to that? How did you do it? You tell them, well, I just practice. I practiced the horse, I practiced the duck, I practiced both. And therefore I know how to change the horse into the duck into the horse quite easily. I know how to change a duck into a bird too, quite easily too. That is the incarnation we're wanting to integrate into our embodiment. That is the person that is able to know the Japanese, is able to connect the Japanese to the Russians, the Russian to, we could say, Poland, Poland to Scotland, Scotland to Spain, Spain to the Middle East. That's what we talk about, that oneness consciousness, true compassion. That's the vitality of our true existence. That's the growth and the stretch, the expansion of our existence. The pathway of education for ourselves. So first grade moving to second grade, yes, we have lessons, we have masteries, we break the glass ceiling of first grade, getting into second grade, we still have mindset of first grade and second grade, and we have to adjust, we have to kind of challenge ourselves, we have to break through the glass ceiling of first grade to now enter into a new stretch, a new pose that is second grade. We know this. But what we forget is that in all of the shapes, the first grade, you can say you're, college, you're sophomore in college. The bridge is the understanding that we were those shapes, that we will be those shapes. Because each of them are a part of growth. The first grade is a part of growth, just as important and fundamental as the sophomore grade. We forget that because we get set into I'm this, and I was never that, and I won't be this. That is the forgetting ourselves. that each of the growth process is a growth process that may be different from our own, such as first grade is vastly different from a sophomore, we could say, in college. But the growth process is leading to, we call, a higher understanding. So I just wanted to discuss a little bit about incarnation and kind of like this whole game of incarnation, my perspective on incarnations and how to kind of communicate it. It's so expansive in a way that we can relate to it, the way we can connect to it. So I hope that this has helped you to learn about kind of why you're here. And a lot of us, we don't understand necessarily why we're here, the shapes and the forms, but just go out there and like really just learn things. It's just like the more you learn, the more you know how to like change gears. You know how to change gears. And that's what we need, because when you know how to, you know the different gears of life and the shapes of life, you know how to change them. But if you never know them, you don't have an adaptability. And that's what you need, so that you can easily kind of slide yourself or easily kind of, shift yourself either subtly or dramatically into an alignment that brings you what it is that you're concentrating on in this life. So it's all intuitive too. We all know, like the soul remembers itself, but we forget that we have a soul. So we forget that the soul knows what it's doing. It knows its concentration, and it will be many things. It'll always kind of be moving forward and also reviewing and moving side to side. So it's not so much of we're trying to obtain something, like grab it and then stick it on us and then wear it for the rest of our lives. No. It's more so of an authentic rhythm is what we're trying to obtain in this life, is authentic rhythm. Because that, we could say that authentic rhythm or that frequency of ourselves, of like, we could say a soul self, or a most rhythmic or balanced self, is what we call the self that is moving realities, changing realities, transforming realities. So that's what we're really looking for, that authentic rhythm, the experience of it in this life, the embodiment of that in this life. And the embodiment of that we create from that. When we create from that place, we create what we call our domain. We call our heaven on earth. And that's what we're all wanting, this feeling of heaven on earth, but it's not a conquer. It's not who has the most land is the winner. Heaven on earth is your vibrational impact on this planet, and how strong your vibrational impact on this planet is will show you how expanded or how much it is crossed across this planet. So it's your vibrational impact you are desiring, because that is what really, we talk about being an expansive person or conquering the land or, conquering whatever kind of field you're trying to conquer. The most vibrational impactful resonance is what tends to be able to be the most compassionate, meaning you can relate Japanese to Russian, and that's what expands you across this land, all land, on this planet Earth. And it's that through that authentic rhythm that we find the resource, the tool, the review, the progress, the possibility that can grow us beyond ourselves. Grow us beyond ourselves. Grow us beyond ourselves. So I'm going to leave you guys with that.